If health is wealth, should wealth be a requirement to receive health? My name is Amadeus Pittman, and based on the research I've conducted recently and the fact that I'm a tax-paying citizen of this country, I am a credible source to talk about healthcare today. Universal healthcare, to be specific. Almost every American would agree that healthcare is important, just as many Americans would agree that if it should be affordable. Paying for healthcare affects all of us in one way or another, whether it's paying for the treatment down the road or someone we love having to pay for treatment. Healthcare should not only be accessible to people to the wealthy, to people who have money. We should make healthcare universal, which means free for all in America, because we have already begun the slow transition towards it. Universal healthcare makes good financial sense, and pretty much it's the right thing to do for the people, especially for the middle class, who's hurting the most. A universal healthcare system is put in place to guarantee access to free healthcare for country citizens. If the United States had free healthcare, we would be more secure and healthy as a society. By the end of my speech, I would like to have shifted more towards universal healthcare, and perhaps if you're more moved far enough, you can contact your congressperson to try to make some change. So initially, I think it's important to illustrate that we've already begun a transition over to universal healthcare. With the passing of the Affordable Care Act, or Obamacare in 2010, we've started to subsidize large portions of the healthcare system. It's the largest we've done since the passing of Medicare and Medicaid. The Affordable Care Act made insurance accessible to 20 million people that had previously not had any health insurance at all. Whether it be parts of healthcare being subsidized, to the expansion of Medicaid, or even young people to be able to stay on their parents' insurance longer than they were previously able to. But the ACA, the Affordable Care Act, did not go far enough. According to Gaffney, Woolhandler, Angel, and Himmelstein in 2006, the ACA falls short in terms of both universally and comprehensiveness. They highlight the success of the ACA and all of its reforms, but also point out that its shortcomings and imminent difficulties down the road. However, the ACA hasn't been able hasn't been a complete failure. It's just the initial step in the United States becoming the latest country to adopt a universal healthcare system. The reform brought on by the ACA is the necessary foundation for establishing universal healthcare as our primary system. With the groundwork for the transmission of universal healthcare, transition to a universal healthcare system being laid, next we must examine whether the idea is viable financially. When switching from any type of system to another type of system, one very important question must be asked: is it economically viable? When it comes to switching healthcare, citizens are concerned. When it comes to switching healthcare, citizens are concerned, and rightfully so. They should be concerned. Robert H. Frank of the New York Times said in 2017 that the cost of a universal healthcare system would actually be cheaper than the current system we have in place. Frank says that the cost is actually lower for a number of reasons. Frank notes, and this is a direct quote, the administrative costs average only about 2% of total expenses. So also they spend virtually nothing on advertising. So that offsets the cost of what would essentially be more. That's what makes it cheaper. Now that we've seen that universal healthcare has its foundation built and is viable economically, we lastly have to look at what effect it has on the people. Like most governmental reform movements, there is a human element involved. I think it's important that they always look at the reform, how it affects average Americans, in this case meaning the middle class. Medicare and Medicaid already do a pretty good job of covering the most vulnerable people of our society. You know, the elderly, the young, and the poor, the lower class people. Meanwhile, the average middle class American is struggling with their healthcare bills under the current system. Alicia Adamczyk of 2007 states, But the working middle class, people who make too much money to qualify for Medicare, Medicaid, and the Affordable Care Act coverage subsidies, would benefit greatly, as would employers' HR departments. Under the Universal Health Care Act system, the oft neglected middle class worker would finally get the relief they have been looking for. With all the advantages the universal healthcare system offers, it would be seen that a shift is not only imminent, but it's also necessary. Main point. The universal healthcare system is a solid foundation which initiates the shift, is economically viable, and it's the right thing to do regarding actual people. As previously stated, America needs to make a shift over to universal healthcare. It would improve the quality of life among its citizens and in the long run would save people money. Additionally, and most importantly, it would provide people with healthcare, people who previously didn't have it, and it'd be free healthcare. I mean, we'd pay for it in taxes essentially, but you wouldn't pay to go visit a doctor. So as a result, you would probably go to a doctor more often. At least that's the thought process. Hopefully by now I've convinced you to shift more towards universal healthcare and to contact your congressperson about moving towards universal healthcare in your state. If more people would be informed about what universal healthcare is and its merits, they would not be so easily dissuaded by the detractors of it, namely the insurance companies and the pharmaceutical companies that really try to slow the progress of moving towards universal healthcare. There's no reason why the United States, the leader of the free world, should be the only developed nation that doesn't guarantee healthcare as a right for all of its citizens. Thank you.